Welcome to the Kennel, episode 128. And it's Steelers week. It's been Steelers week all week, but it is officially now, because the Kennel's here.
Get this, the 4-1 Browns.
The 4-1 Cleveland football Browns
are going against the undefeated 4-0 Steelers.
That's what we call a matchup. That's what we call...
Hey, have you ever heard anything like that?
Not in my life, no. Nothing like this has ever happened
This is unbelievable.
Yeah, this is big time. So... we got a lot to talk about today. We're super amped on it. Hate the Steelers. We're going to get into it. Don't you worry. But before we get into it, make sure you subscribe to the podcast and hit the notification bell so you can tune in every time on YouTube if that's where you're watching. If you're listening to the podcast, make sure you rate 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, do it on Spotify, whatever you're doing. We're available in all of these places, anywhere you could want. And then, of course, on social media at Football Kennel, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We're most active on Twitter, but we exist in the other places, so you have some options there. But we're really trying to build the YouTube thing up. We have video, so get on that. But,
cool dog pound backdrop. If you haven't seen it yet,
if you haven't seen it, get in on it. Got the bobbleheads, all of our friends
like
here.
Like the podcast video, or like the video if you like the backdrop. That's a good one.
There you go. Yeah. Everyone's going to downvote. No, you have to like it. Come on now. All right. So with that being said, it is Steelers week. We're going into Pittsburgh. We haven't won in Pittsburgh in like 15 years. So this is easily a huge game. I say we kick it off with our quick bites, which last week we didn't, but this time for real, we're going to do a thing.
We'll have a thing here now.
There will be a thing most likely.
Quick bites.
Quick bites.
We'll bring in the quick bites with some Baker news, some injury news. He's been limited in practice with a rib chest injury. He was marked on the injury list with a chest, but he did get his ribs x-rayed, which showed no significant injury. And then he kind of gave away during his press conference that his entire right side was hurting.
Yeah, and one of the Steelers players, I think it was Casey Hayward, said that they're going to really try to bring the punishment on him and really try to make him hurt more. He had some kind of dumbass comment that pissed me off.
Yeah, I'm already mad. But why do you think Baker gave that bit of information away, like revealed that he was that hurt?
Or it could be a whole different ball game and he's not that hurt. And he's making him think that he is, and then he's going to come out and throw for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns on the dumbass Steelers.
I would love to see it. I mean, he certainly looked like he was on pace to do that the first half of last week's game.
Yeah, and then things fell off a little.
Pedestrian second half. Yeah,
in general, the injury report is not looking great for us. Definitely have a lot of...
It's a sizable injury report, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But the Steelers, mind you, do have some important players on there as well. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but... go ahead and get deeper into the injury report if you'd like.
Yeah, let's get deep
into the injury report.
Let's pound the Chubb. So some of the main names, I know I miss Chubb. Some of the main names, obviously, to kick off the injury report, Chubb still hurt. I think we'll get him back after the bye.
Still in IR.
Still on the IR. But some notable names. Ronnie Harrison still dealing with the concussion protocol stuff, so he did not participate in practice. Kareem Hunt's got a thigh now. It was the groin. Now it's the thigh. I don't know if that's related, but he's been limited the past couple of days, which we need him, obviously, more than ever. Carl Joseph didn't participate. Jarvis Landry hasn't practiced all week. I'm not even sure what's going on with him. It says hips/ribs, which we know he had the hip surgery. He took that one big hit early in the game against the Colts, but was able to keep playing through it. Someone didn't silence his things, the nerve over here. So we need Jarvis Landry, especially against the Steelers, but he never misses games. I suspect he'll be playing. You mentioned Baker Mayfield. He's been limited in consecutive practices, so that's something you don't like to see. So there was a lot of Case Keenum out there, and all the assholes on Twitter. There was this. I've seen this going around on Twitter. People are like, the Browns would have the same record if Case Keenum was a starter, and I'm just like, can you just go home? Can you just get out of my face?
Just log off Twitter. And
I hate you guys. Another limited participant, but it is progress. Larry Ogunjobi, limited the past couple days. Jacob Phillips has not practiced at all. Our rookie linebacker.
Ogunjobi was out last game too.
Yep. So he's limited, trying to get back into it. Sheldon Richardson was limited on Wednesday, but today being Thursday, on Thursday he was a full participant, so that's progress. We're still without Wyatt Teller for the foreseeable future.
Likely, I mean, not for sure he's out this game.
This is a game you would love to see him in, but Chris Hubbard's going against his old team, filling in at right guard.
And he's been doing well.
I think he's a better guard than tackle anyways, so that does work in his favor.
He's been doing well so far, and I think he's going to show promise against his former team. team.
I hope so too.
I have confidence in him.
And moving along the offensive line, J.C. Tretter's been limited both days, but he's a veteran. He's a pro. I'm not worried about him getting in there.
I see him being limited almost as when Joe Thomas would be listed as limited, and he would miss practices, like the first 2 practices. Veteran linemen, I think, typically don't.
Yeah, J.C. will be good. He knows what to do.
Yeah.
Another guy who's forever limited, and that's Olivier Vernon. He's limited 2 days in a row in practice. So we'll see if he's healthy. He's been starting to play here and there, so obviously we'll need him in a big game. We'll see what he can do. And then, I don't think you mentioned it yet, but the big one, well, before I say that, Kevin Johnson also did not practice on Thursday. It says not injury related, so I'm not sure what his story is. I guess I could look it up, but he's probably fine. And then OBJ sent home with an illness. They don't believe it's COVID related, but they sent him home just to be cautious.
Anytime anybody has any sort of symptoms that could be related to COVID, and we all know the symptom list is a mile long, they take an abundance of caution and send everybody home is basically what they were saying.
That's been the phrase, an abundance of caution.
Yeah, and what they said is that, they've been basically on high alert all of 2020, just due to all the protocols and just wanting to make sure that they're following everything. And the Browns, I think, have been fortunate in the fact that they haven't had any positive COVID tests out of their facility, and we haven't faced anyone or have anyone in their schedule so far that has dealt with any COVID-related crap.
Yeah, thank God, man. Could you imagine the game getting postponed, especially like this game?
That'd be devastating. I mean, I think to point more out on that, he did test negative for COVID. The last test we have a result for, but the most accurate test in terms of the timeline when he started showing illness symptoms, whatever they may be, and when they sent him home, it's going to be tomorrow morning. So we'll know tomorrow morning whether, definitively whether it's COVID or not.
So by the time you're listening to this, you'll know.
Yeah.
And if it's COVID, it's going to be a huge deal. And
yeah. So I think
have to do an emergency.
Unfortunately, this episode we'll have the caveat. We'll have an asterisk to it because I think all of our predictions are based on obviously Baker making it, which I mean, me and you feel very strongly that he will. He ain't no wuss.
Oh, he's playing.
So he's playing.
Not going to miss Steelers.
This is an important game. We're 4-1. He's not going to miss this game unless he's dying, unless his ribs are falling off.
Falling
off the bone. So and OBJ obviously being negative for COVID and being active on game day. So
yeah, we'll bust through the Steelers really quick because they have a decently long injury list as well, but most of their guys have healed up. So you had Big Ben, who didn't participate on Wednesday, full participant on Thursday. Deontay Johnson, who got banged up last week, he didn't practice Wednesday, he was limited on Thursday. And then everyone else, Juju, full on Thursday, Marcus Allen, full on Thursday, the fullback Derek Watt, full on Thursday, his brother TJ Watt, obvious problem, he's got a shoulder, but he was full participant on Thursday. Marquise Pouncey, who was the guy who jumped on Myles Garrett and was trying to hit him like a maniac. He was a full participant. Eric Ebron, Stephon Tuitt. So they're actually, they're a little banged up, but as far as availability, they're about as healthy as it gets.
Yeah, glad they're healthy, but disappointing that they made it to the game because I think the big question marks were Pouncey and were Tuitt. So those were the two big pieces that were looking like it might be an issue when it came to game day, but it looks like with full participation in practice, obviously they're secured to be in starting lineup.
Yeah, and we might as well mention this in the quick bites. This is obviously Myles Garrett's first game against the Steelers since Helmetgate.
Since the helmet accident. Yep.
And obviously he's not facing Mason Rudolph. He's facing Big Ben, so it's not like there's a rematch there. But the Steelers, that Mike Tomlin's a really good coach at keeping things chill in the media standpoint, but the dirty-ass Steelers are talking about this shit in the locker room. Maurice Pouncey, who was the one who jumped on Myles Garrett, is going to be fired up for this. The Steelers already have one of the best left tackles in the game. Forget the dude's name. It's like Villanueva, I think might be his last name.
Yeah.
The guy from the military. He's actually he's really great. Good for them, bastards. But Myles Garrett has had success against him in the past, and I think this is a huge game for him to rebound. And as we start to get into things, this is a serious matchup, even from the national media.
It definitely is. Kareem Hunt said we've got Myles' back on this one.
Well, that's right. You gotta.
So this is a big game for the Browns as much as it is a big game for the Steelers.
This is a huge game, and CBS knows it too. They put their number one broadcast crew on it, so we're gonna have Tony Romo calling the game, which is always fun and exciting.
That'll be dope.
And it's like the game on CBS, so it's gonna be watched pretty heavily nationally. So this is a big matchup, not just for the Browns, not just for the Steelers, but for the NFL in general. And I'll tell you what, a good Browns team is good for the NFL. A good Browns-Steelers rivalry is good for the NFL. I mentioned it earlier. We haven't won in Pittsburgh in 15 years. Ben Roethlisberger, his career record against the Steelers is 22-2-1.
Against the Browns?
Yeah, against the Browns. That makes me sick to my stomach, and if we can help remedy that today, that'd be great. We beat them last year. It was in Cleveland, then we lost in Pittsburgh. If we can think about this, we can get a W in Pittsburgh, and move to 5-1, which would also push them down to 4-1.
It's not just 5-1.
It's the 5-1 Cleveland football Browns.
Well, it would be 5-1's beating the Steelers at Steelers.
Yep.
That it's not just 5-1.
And pushing them to 4-1, so we would jump to second in the division.
With you say, let's get into game preview.
I think it's about that time. That's fair. What did you want to mention? This other thing in quick bites, or do you want to? We'll talk about that in the game preview.
Oh well, yeah, we could talk about it now. I just wanted to note that a lot of talk is around the Steelers' offense and how good they are, especially with Big Ben being back and how he's distributing the football accurately to a lot of different players, and they have a lot of weapons. But I think it's fair to point out that the Browns' offense is ranked number 3 overall in the NFL with 31.2 points per game, and the number 1 rushing offense with 188.4 yards per game, even after being limited against, one of the best running defenses in the NFL this year so far. The Colts
being
last
the Colts,
week.
yeah. And we're averaging 31.2 points per game despite only scoring 6 in the season opener.
So a big deal. Yeah, so really it's, over 30 points per game since week 2.
And we're facing the Steelers defense, which is one of the top defenses in the NFL. So this is another situation similar to last week. Unstoppable force meets a movable object. And last week we're able to have not as much success on offense as we have had in the games leading up to it, but still a lot more success than people anticipated.
And we stuck to our game plan, and we overcame some challenges. The big thing against the Steelers' defense is they are better than the Colts, and they definitely have some bigger names in there in terms of talent. Their defense is 6th in points allowed with 21.8 a game, and 2nd against the run, allowing 64 yards a game. So they're actually better than the Colts up to this point against the run. They're 15th against the pass, so that's really where they falter, allowing 237.5 yards per game. So it's going to be, I would assume, a similar type of game plan going into Pittsburgh to attack their defense through the passing lanes and to set up the run.
But I think you mentioned it, they do lead the NFL in sacks. So
with 20 sacks, but keep in mind they had 5 sacks against the Eagles in Week 5 alone. So
that helps, and the competition they faced hasn't been great, so that obviously helps. This is we talked about it last week. The Colts facing a test against the Browns. This is the biggest test the Steelers have faced all season. Division rival, a good team. They haven't had to face a really good team yet.
The same could be said about the Browns, though. This is really the biggest test. I mean, you even said it in our pregame episode about the Colts. That was a bigger test for the Colts than it was for the Browns. I would say this is a bigger test for the Browns than it is for the Steelers.
Oh yeah, we got 20 years of pain riding on this. Let's get into the gosh darn game preview.
Let's do it.
Game preview.
180! What's up?
All right, Steelers week, and it's time to get a little more into the game. This is obviously something that the Browns fans need. And I'll tell you what, we were already saying, could you imagine being 3-1? Oh, could you imagine beating the Cowboys going 3-1? Oh, dude, if we beat the Colts, we'll be 4-1. Can you even imagine what that's? If we beat the Steelers
in Pittsburgh,
the 4-0 Steelers in Pittsburgh, and move to 5-1,
that would based on what happens with the Ravens, we would be leading the division.
I have no words for that.
Can you imagine?
5-1.
5-1 against the Steelers in Pitt. Not just 5-1. It's important that we mention there are very specific things that come with this 5-1. 5-1 after beating the Steelers in Pittsburgh. But before we get deeper,
and we have Bengals next week. Not to get ahead, but if you're able to beat the Steelers this week and move to 5-1, you got a good chance of moving to 6-1. I mean, it can go crazy.
Well, every team in the NFL is a challenging team, but really here at the Cleveland Browns, we like to focus out
one game at a time.
We're trying to go 1-0.
1-0 every week. Yep. Well, I will say this. I mean, this is the only pessimistic thing I'm going to say for the whole episode. If we were to lose, we're still 4-2.
That was going to be my question. How would you, before we dive deeper into the stats of the game, how would you feel about being 4-2?
I'd be very sad to lose to the Steelers, but it's not season ending. We get to play them again at home, and we're still sitting at 4-2, playing the Bengals the following week. So that's the beauty of having a winning streak and like getting ahead on the record, because usually every year it's like, okay, well, we're 3-6, so if we can just, okay, cool, now we're 4-6, if we can just keep, we're 4-7, shit, okay, we're 5-7 now, we're 5-8. It's just like you're screwed. It wouldn't
be the end of the world. It really wouldn't be.
But it would hurt me bad.
But it would be painful as a fan for sure. Yeah, because again, this is the first game since Myles' Garrett helmet gate fiasco, and
I hate the Steelers.
Obviously, the Steelers being the rivalry that it is, Steelers Browns, and then us going into Pittsburgh and being able to win there never happens.
No, it's been like 15 years.
Never happens.
I think we've done it once since coming back.
So it'd be a good test for the Browns to beat out and win at Pittsburgh.
Great test for the Browns, and just if we can win this game, what it's going to do for the confidence of the coaching staff, the players. And I know that the Browns are treating this, they won't say anything in the media. Kevin Stefanski keeps it chill, but I know that these guys, this is going to feel like a playoff game. A 4-1 team against a 4-0 team, divisional rival. This is big. This is what it's all about. And I know we have a lot of guys that are new to the team. And I know the guys that we've had on the team, it hasn't felt like a rival with the Steelers because they've been able to beat our asses. But
I think that all ended last year, bro.
I think that changed last year. You got Myles in there. Everyone wants to play hard for Myles.
This is a rivalry again, and it's got a history attached to it.
Yep,
now.
Myles is going to want to play hard. Guys who have been on the team like Joel Bitonio, a veteran leader, is going to be telling everyone how important this game is. And don't forget,
Baker, OBJ, Jarvis, all those guys. This is
Baker and Jarvis's third year with the team. They get it. They know. So this is a huge matchup, and I'm beyond excited about it. Let's break down a little bit the Steelers' offense. I know you kind of already alluded to our offense is better, but the Steelers' offense is nothing to sneeze at. They're averaging 29.5 points per game, just under 30 a game. For passing yards, 239, and rushing yards, 138. Still a dominant rushing team. And then most important to note is Ben Roethlisberger on the season, 10 touchdowns to just 1 interception. He has fumbled a couple times, but he's only been sacked 6 times through 4 games, so that's a little more than 1 a game, but he hasn't faced a Myles Garrett, so that makes it a little more difficult. And then on the year, James Conner has battled some injuries, but when he's been healthy, he's been very effective. He's got 55 carries for 268 yards, 3 touchdowns through 4 games, averaging 4.9 yards per carry. So, and in 2 of those games, he's gone over 200 yards. So this is a guy who is a legitimate threat. Their offensive line is legitimate. And I know we've been pretty good against the run, but as I've said, we've been in positions where we haven't had to let the teams run it a lot because we've had leads. So that has helped us tremendously. But this could be a game where our rush defense is really challenged.
Certainly challenged for sure. James Conner is a talented player, but I do want to point out that he only rushed 15 times for 44 yards, 2.9 yards per carry, 1 touchdown against the Steelers in Week 5.
Against the Eagles.
Against the Eagles, I'm sorry. He is part of the Steelers, obviously. and the Browns defense on the other end has only allowed 3.9 yards per carry, being 4th overall against the run. So they're doing a great job effectively. I get your point about at a certain level there, it's only because we're containing them when we have enough of a lead where teams can't really afford to be running the ball and sticking to the game plan like Kevin Stefanski does. But I think it is fair to point out that James Conner has been stopped before, and this defense is capable of holding him down. I believe he will be held to probably below 3.5 yards per carry.
Well, unfortunately, James Conner is just the tip of the iceberg, because if you look at the other weapons this offense has, they're stacked.
Obviously, I mean, you mentioned Ben Roethlisberger's ability. He's been such a stud this year, mostly because he's been distributing the football to so many of these guys. So I'm sure you're going to get into them now. Tons
of playmakers. Obviously, the receiving corps is led by Juju Smith-Schuster, who's actually averaging less than 10 yards per catch so far through the season. 21 catches for 188 yards and a few touchdowns. The big play guy last last week was Chase Claypool going for 7 catches, 110 yards, 3 touchdowns, and rushing a touchdown to get 4 touchdowns in a game as a rookie. This is a guy I like coming out of Notre Dame. Big size, good speed, good body control, and of course he falls to the Steelers. But we're not done yet. It's on the receiving end. You also have Deontay Johnson, who's a little banged up, but before his he dealt with a concussion, then he's got like an ankle injury. In the first 2 games I have on my fantasy team, he got over 10 targets, more than Juju, in weeks 1 and 2 in each of those games. So he can be a real threat. He's a speedster. And another speedster who looks like a Deontay Johnson as well is James Washington, another good receiver. He's their 4th option, and even he is a big play threat. And then to top it all off, they have a really good tight end who's especially dominant in the red zone with Eric Ebron. So
former Colts.
So if you just look at receivers 1 through 4 and the tight end, and then James Conner's a competent pass-catching running back, and the offensive line is good, this offense is completely stacked.
They're balling. They have talent. They have talent unlike the Colts, really. They have name recognition talent. All of these guys, if you were a casual football fan, you know. Juju, obviously the rookies not so much. Eric Ebron, I just by looking at that name, you know, James Conner now, obviously due to his performance after Le'Veon left, and then his whole the cancer story, which is, you know, a great story. And then obviously Big Ben. I mean, it doesn't get bigger than that. Big Ben is, you know, top 10 quarterback in the league.
Yeah, so I'm concerned that this game could be somewhat of a shootout like we saw with the Cowboys. Their offense is, on paper, and so far through 4 games, not far off from the Cowboys in terms of a talent level. And we know what happened in that
Colts?
game. No, I'm talking about the Cowboys.
Okay.
Yeah. From a talent standpoint, the Steelers are about as good as the Cowboys. And if you look at our defense, we're still through 5 games, we're allowing 30 points a game, 29.8. Passing yards per game, 296, which is 30th. And that is skewed a little because Dak Prescott threw for over 500 yards against us. But that did happen.
And the most recent example against Phillip Rivers, I mean, we basically rendered him useless. He had like a 60 QBR, obviously had the 2 interceptions.
Yeah, we were nice against him. What's been helping us is our turnovers. So we forced 6 interceptions, 7 fumbles, and we have 12 sacks on the year. Myles Garrett having half of those. So as we've talked about, this is a defense that's going to allow yards.
Those turnovers are tied second for total turnovers with the Seahawks.
Love to see it. And that's the trend that's going to have to continue in this game because our defense is going to allow yards. It's just going to happen. But as long as our players are able to continue to make big plays when it counts, Myles Garrett with strip sacks late in the game, Denzel Ward with game-sealing interceptions,
OBJ with, you know, game-breaking runs or catches for a touchdown on the offensive side.
So I'm fairly confident that this game has the potential to turn into more of a shootout. With that being said, Browns versus Steelers are typically ugly games on the shitty Pittsburgh field. And things get super physical. So I'm going to contradict myself immediately and say, you know, I also wouldn't be surprised if this was a low-scoring game that was a bit of an ugly slugfest. But on paper, if you look at their offense and you look at our offense, this game has a legitimate chance to become a bit of a shootout.
I was actually predicting the same. I was thinking the same thing. I think, obviously, from the Browns, what I'm expecting to see is a little bit more of what we saw in the first half of the game. Hopefully, if Baker Mayfield's able to do it, and if he's healthy enough to do it, I would love for this to be a shootout, and I would love for him to have the performance he had in that first half. He's due for a breakout game, truly, and I would love for that to be against the 15th ranked defense against the pass in the Steelers. You know, I think they're really that's where they're struggling. Against the run, they're going to be able to stop us. We're going to miss Nick Chubb just like we did against the Colts. I think we'll utilize the run intelligently, maybe late in the game to keep the time of possession. But ultimately, I think it's going to come down to the passing game, and we're going to need Baker to put it on his back. And OBJ obviously is going to be huge in this game.
Yeah, last week we saw Baker have a great half.
Yeah.
And then he fell off hard.
Yeah. So we're going to need
to put together
the first half in a full 60-minute football game.
He needs to put together a full game. And I'll tell you what, if the Steelers are sitting there thinking Baker's banged up, they're going to lean on the run, and they plan on selling out against the run, I wouldn't be surprised if with Tomlin and the Steelers, their approach is, okay, we'll let Baker try to beat us. We're going to sell out to stop the run. and we'll let Baker try. And if that could very well be their mindset, and if Baker's able to step up to that challenge, this is where legends are made. If Baker Mayfield's able to step up to that challenge with the sore ribs, throw for over 300 yards and a few touchdowns against a top 5 Steelers defense, whatever they are, that's how you become a legend. That's how you tell not just the Cleveland fans, but the NFL that you're the real deal. Isn't that right, dude?
Let us know.
Yeah, get it done, my friend. Get it done.
We need him to do it. Against this defense. They're no joke, man. They're going to be able to stop the run, and what I'm really scared of is the type of pressure they're going to be able to generate. I mean, 20 sacks is no joke. Even taking the 5 against the Eagles, they have some talent up in that defensive front 7, and they're going to be able to generate pressure, unlike anything we've ever seen up to this point. I really believe that.
Oh yeah, that's happening. But this is why I like having an intelligent head coach who's going to try to scheme those things away. We're going to see Baker Mayfield completing quick passes. You're going to see a lot of play action like we've seen, a lot of rollouts and bootlegs. But the Steelers are going to be disciplined. They're not going to be as easily fooled by those bootlegs, rollouts, play action. They're going to be a lot more disciplined defense. So it's going to be a challenge. Coming into this game, the Browns are averaging 31.2 points a game, as we referenced. That's top 5 in the NFL. They're one of 6 teams to be averaging over 30 points per game. That obviously hasn't happened through the air. We're 29th in pass yards per game, but we're number 1 running the football in 188 yards per game, averaging 5.5 yards per carry, which if we're able to sustain that, unbelievable. Now, Baker has the best QBR he's had in his career. I think he's top 10 in QBR, but if you look at his actual passer rating, those numbers are a little lower, but he's still miles above where he was last year. He's thrown for almost 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns. He does have 4 interceptions now after throwing 2 last week, but only 1 fumble. And through 5 games, he's only been sacked 7 times. That's a good pace. I know he hasn't thrown it a shit ton, but still, not getting sacked is good.
No, yeah, the offense, they're ranked 7th, tied for 7th in sacks allowed, so that's good.
Doing good there. And if you look at the running game, I miss Nick Chubb. I want him back so bad, especially in a game like this. But the good news is we do have Kareem Hunt. I know he's a little banged up, but if you look at his numbers through the season, he's got 347 yards, 3 touchdowns on the ground, averaging 5 yards a carry. You pair that with 11 catches for 63 yards and 3 touchdowns. That means he's got 6 touchdowns through 5 games. Not much more you can ask for, considering he was a backup in the majority of those games as well. Last week, he had 23 touches, 20 on the ground to go with 3 catches on top of that. So this is a game where, assuming he's healthy, against the dominant Steelers front, we're going to need a lot of Kareem Hunt, and we're going to need him to make some big plays. And what I like about Kareem Hunt is he grew up a Browns fan. This is another guy we were talking about earlier, people who understand the rivalry. Kareem Hunt understands this rivalry, and he's been saying as much. He's like, dude, playing the Steelers, beating the Steelers, like, this is the stuff I dreamed of growing up. So you know Kareem Hunt's going to come in fired up and is going to be giving it his all, not just for himself, but also motivating these linemen, motivating these young guys, leading by example. That's one thing that you kind of miss with Chubb is he's someone who doesn't talk a lot, and he just puts in the work and doesn't mess around, and that's motivating the other people because they know that this dude's going to come in grinding. Kareem Hunt has a different approach as far as being more vocal, but if he can come in and lead the charge and be like, let's go, fuck the Steelers, give me that ball, that shit's contagious.
Sure.
And we need that energy. Obviously, we got it. We have Kevin Stefanski to keep us even keel. You don't want to get too emotional. It's when you start making mistakes.
They're throwing helmets around.
Yeah. But if you can't bring the right kind of intensity into a game like this, then you're just going to get pushed around. So we have to come in not out of control, but physical and fired up.
I couldn't agree more. Our offense is also no joke. I mean, you mentioned Kareem Hunt. Obviously, we missed Nick Chubb. Behind him, Deontay Johnson has been doing well. I mean, obviously his big game was against the Cowboys. He did have a big run against the Colts last week, but didn't get much action there. But on the receiving end, obviously we have Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, Austin Hooper, who's really been carving a place of his own in this offense. I mean, he's been doing all the groundwork, really all the gritty work.
Yeah, especially the past couple weeks, we've been able to get him more involved. He's been able to make some nice plays for us.
And you saw a little bit of David out there coming back from injury last week as well, and I think he did what he was supposed to do. And obviously we talked a bit about Rashard Higgins last week. He waited, he was patient, he put in the work, and then when it was his time, he showed up. He was there. So obviously we've had like a next man up mentality with this offense and this defense, and I'm not really worried about not having Nick Chubb. Of course I miss him, but I think this offense and this coaching staff will figure it out.
And they have so far. We do have the weapons on offense. We do have the offensive line. Missing Wyatt Teller hurts obviously as well, but we're confident that Hubbard can come in and step in. So I really see this game having the potential to be a blowout. Now, if you look at the Steelers' defense, they're only averaging 22 points per game, which is 6th best as far as points given up. 15th against the pass, like you've mentioned, but they are leading the NFL with 20 sacks through 4 games. It's 5 sacks a game. That's nothing to sneeze at. And then rushing yards allowed, they're at 138 per game, which is 8th in the NFL. So there is some opportunity to move the ball on the ground against them. And they obviously have not faced a rushing attack like the Cleveland Browns have, because no one has, because we have the best rushing attack in the NFL. And then from a turnover standpoint, 6 interceptions through 4 games, which is good. They've only forced 1 fumble, so we have to continue to protect the ball there. But overall, this defense is no joke, and we've seen it for years. The Steelers' defense is always good, and it's something we have to contend with. But I think for the first time in a long time, we're in a position to where we can play physical, we can play smart, we can move them off the ball, and have an opportunity to. If we can get the run game going early, anything's possible. Anything's possible in this game.
I also think if Freddie Kitchens can beat the Steelers once, and I think, didn't we beat him with Ben Roethlisberger?
No, he went out early. So we beat him when they had Mason Rudolph. That's when Myles Garrett hit him in the head. And then the second game, they beat us with Duck Hodges at quarterback.
Yeah, now it's all coming back to me, and it hurts.
You had to ask, didn't you?
I did.
You had to ask.
I did. It's
so this is a legitimate threat. The Steelers are really good on offense and defense. They're a legit Super Bowl contender. As much as I hate them, they are. So beating them in Pittsburgh would be monumental, to say the least. So I like our chances. I think it's going to be an intense game. I think this is going to come down to a few big plays like a lot of our games have. And we've been on the good end of most of those plays, obviously, with our 4-game winning streak. But I think this is a game where you need your superstars to step up. We're going to need a big game out of Myles Garrett. We're going to need a big game out of OBJ, assuming he's good to go. We're going to need a huge game out of Kareem Hunt. And most of all, we're going to need, I'm not even going to say we're going to need a big game out of Baker Mayfield per se, but we're going to need a good game from him. We're going to need a clean game from him. If we get a
clean game is pivotal.
If we get a big game from Baker Mayfield, we win.
Yeah, I would argue last week, him turning the ball over twice, we got lucky that didn't affect the game as much as it really should have. We talked about it. That could have turned the momentum entirely for the Colts, and it really felt like it was going to. So huge for him to keep it clean, take care of that football, and not commit any turnovers. This is going to be, a very similar game, but it's going to be a little bit more of a slugfest because there is that rivalry aspect to it, like you mentioned. But I think ultimately it'll come down to us taking advantage of what they have struggled against on the defense. So that's, the quick passes and, like you said, a lot of the trickery that we've been doing well, protecting the football, and late in the game, establishing the run as best as we can to keep the time of possession in our favor. So that's and then obviously defensively we need to generate more. We need to generate turnovers. We know that Big Ben, when he has to throw the ball a lot, he does have a tendency to throw the ball over. Obviously not as much as Phillip Rivers, because he has been more consistent throughout his career. But Big Ben does have that itchy trigger finger sometimes.
He'll throw it up and he'll take a chance.
So we can if we can take advantage of that. And then offensively, we can keep the ball clean, keep it, and protect it. I think we really have a chance against the Steelers.
I think we have a great chance.
And it'd be huge for this coaching staff and this team. Like you said, it would be the city for sure. But I think, really for the staff, that would be it's a huge test to overcome. I think it's definitely possible. It's the biggest test so far. And another thing that I think is important, and it's being missed in all of this, was the Week 1 loss against the Ravens, man. I think that really switched over a lot of our perspective from a lot of our players, that this doesn't come, it's not just going to come to you. You got to earn it, especially here in Cleveland. And I think going into Pittsburgh, they're going to take that game so much more serious because of that first Week 1 loss to the Ravens, the first chance at a rivalry, and getting beat, not just beat, but the way we got beat, I think is going to be huge.
Yeah, and Kevin Stefanski learned a lot from that game. One of the many things I like about him is he's not stubborn. He's willing to make adjustments, to change his ways, to seek advice. And he even said after the Week 1 thing, he learned a lot of things that didn't work. And he learned some things that worked, and he capitalized on that. As opposed to previous coaches that would have doubled down, blamed the players, fucking big disaster. So I think the growth is good. And we said before the season started, we just want to see this team get better each week. And I think with beyond a shadow of a doubt, you've seen this team get better each week.
Competitive, and they overcome they overcome adversity. We've said that a lot in these past few episodes, that we've really seen that from this team. And they're having fun out there, and they make it fun for us to watch.
So fun, dude.
That's the biggest difference, really.
This winning streak has been phenomenal. It's been a great time.
Unlike anything I've ever experienced as a Browns fan.
Yeah. All right. So final thoughts before we get into quick predicts.
Well, I mean, just how important this game really is for the season moving forward. I think obviously the win is the most important thing, but more than anything, I mean, we talked about how sad we would be if it does end up being a loss and we're 4-2. But 4-2 isn't bad, and I think if the game can stay competitive and we really see the guys tough it out there, I don't think a loss would be the worst thing in the world. But man, would 5-1 after beating Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh, man, how that would feel.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen all these historic...
There'd be nothing like it.
We've seen all this historic stuff for the Browns this year, whether it's, Chubb having over 100 yards, 2 touchdowns in consecutive games for the first time since, 1966, whether it's us starting 4-1 for the first time since 1994, etc. If we're going to be a real football team and if we're going to have a chance to run the AFC North, we have to be able to beat the Steelers.
Super important.
So this is a huge game.
And like you mentioned, this is likely, a potential playoff game. They're internally they should be treating it as such, but I think, it's a preview of what could be a playoff game.
Oh, big time. Big time. Last time we were in the playoffs, back in 2002, we faced the Steelers, and they beat us on a last-minute drive, touchdown to Chris Muchimana and my 11-year-old ass cried like a baby girl. It was devastating. But it feels good this year, and I can't wait to beat some Steeler ass. Let's do the quick predicts. Quick predicts.
Quick predicts. Time for quick predicts.
Hashtag Kennel Quick Predicts.
Don't forget to use the hashtag Kennel Quick Predicts on Twitter, or if you watch us on YouTube, leave a comment below and play along with us and let us know what you think, what your Kennel Quick Predicts, I'm struggling here, what your Kennel Quick Predicts will be for this episode 128, week 6.
And of course,
hashtag Kennel Quick Predicts.
And of course, in the post-game episode, we will feature all the right answers. You win imaginary points that you can take with you to Vegas.
Shout out your Twitter. You'll get an MVP award based on if you win or not.
You win enough points, you can take those to Vegas. You can gamble. You can
use those as currency.
Do other things.
56 different countries.
56 different countries.
Yeah.
It's now legally recognized. Kennel points. We're starting a blockchain. We're gonna get all that going.
Code and stuff.
All right. So let's do the one we always start with. Myles Garrett sacks. How many sacks? The
most important hashtag Kennel Quick Predict.
How many sacks is Myles Garrett going to have in this game? Why don't you kick him off?
Oh, this is a tough game, man. Defensively, I think obviously the Steelers' offensive line has only allowed 6 sacks this year, so slightly better than ours. But they suck, and I hate them. And I hope Myles Garrett kills them all, and I hope he gets at least 2 sacks. I'm going to go with 2 sacks.
2 sacks, I like that. I'm feeling super ballsy and potentially unrealistic, and I'm going 3. Going 3 sacks for Myles Garrett because, as I said, if Baker Mayfield can have a huge game, this is where legends are made. Last week we saw Aaron Donald have 4 sacks in his game to take the sack lead in the NFL. If Myles Garrett can come into this game and have 3 sacks against Big Ben and the Steelers in a dramatic winning type of way, oh man, Defensive Player of the Year, all but locked up.
Yeah, I like that. I like how that sounds.
That does.
But a little ballsy though.
Yeah, a little bit.
If you're trying to get points, you might get it. You might nail it right on the head.
That would be pretty epic.
Yeah, it would be.
He may have more.
Next one, Steelers sacks. We're talking about sacks, and obviously we're facing the best sack defense in the NFL right now with 20 sacks, tied for most with 20 sacks. So, how many total sacks do you think the Steelers defense will get?
Well, they're averaging 5 a game, which is significant, and I do think this is going to be a game that we have to throw a little more in order to have some success. So I think that is going to make us a little more susceptible to some pressure. While I do think Stefanski will be smart and get rid of the ball quick, I do think the Steelers are able to come away with 2 sacks in this game.
All right, fair. I'm going to go, maybe I'm leaning on a little bit of the unrealistic side of things, but I think this is a statement game for our offensive line, and they're going to stifle that defensive line of the Steelers. They're only going to be able to get 1 sack against this offensive line again on Baker Mayfield.
I love that. I hope they don't get any.
Yeah, same.
That would be beautiful.
Well, same.
Moving into Baker Mayfield turnovers, our next quick predict. This is one where, he went a couple games without a turnover. Last week he throws 2 in the second half, and it hurts us a lot. I'm going to make a semi-bold prediction and say I think he's only going to have 1 turnover, but I think it's going to occur late in the game, and it's going to put us in a position where we get the ball back with an opportunity to tie or win, and Baker Mayfield drives down the field, makes up for his turnover, and we're able to get the victory.
I like that fairy tale land story. I'm going to go with no turnovers. I think after losing the ball twice, and he said it himself, arguably having the worst half of football he's had so far in this season, it's going to be extremely important for him to take care of the football, and I think he's going to make a point of it, and he's going to have 0 turnovers against the Steelers.
That'd be huge. I love it. No complaints here.
On top of, in my opinion, probably having his breakout game of the year.
That'd be great.
Stamp it down. Put a hammer down. I don't know what I'm trying to say. That's my prediction.
You've made a
point. Take it to the bank. There you go.
Yeah, okay. Take it to the bank. Next one, Kareem Hunt. Is he going to go over or under 100 rushing yards? What do you think?
I'm going to go with over, man. I'm feeling pretty confident on Kareem Hunt. Also due for a breakout game. I don't think this will be a breakout game per se. He hasn't broken 100 yards rushing this entire season yet, but obviously he's been a little hobbled and been behind Nick Chubb up to last week. So I think this will be a huge test for him, and I think he'll break the 100-yard mark. Yeah, I'm going to go over.
I want to go over really bad. I want to say it's going to be the over. But my gut's telling me he's going to be under, and that's not to say he's going to have a bad game. I just think we're gonna continue to split the carries with Johnson, and I think the Steelers' defense is legit, and we're not going to be able to average 5.5 yards per carry. But with that being said, I do think we're going to throw the ball more, and I think Kareem Hunt will be involved in that. I think Kareem Hunt will be over 100 total yards, but I don't think he'll be over 100 rushing yards.
That's a fair thing to point out, but I do think he will be over.
I want him to be bad, and I think it's very possible, but I'm going to go with the under.
Okay, final score, Week 6, the most important quick predict of all, next to Myles Garrett sacks.
Indeed. Looking at our record prediction
I say that after, but you go,
episode 120. Well, I'm looking at it now. I'm reacting live time. I predicted a loss in this game. I predicted to be 4-1 going into it, so I got that right. Mm-hmm. And then I predicted a loss to the Steelers, rendering us to 4-2. But as always happens when I'm here in the moment, I'm not going to sit here and predict an L. I don't have it in me to do that. So I'm going to go with the victory. I do think it's going to be high scoring. I'm going to go Browns win 34-31 in a nail biter. Either a last-second touchdown or a last-second field goal to break the tie and get the win. I think it's going to be close, and I think it's going to be intense. But I think the Browns can pull this shit out. This is our season. Miracles do happen, and we are long overdue. And I'm going with the W.
So I think against this defense, and I think what we're going to have to do, I think you're right in going over 30, and I think you're right that it's going to be that type of game in general.
I see you changing the score.
As I'm thinking about it more, it makes the most sense to go Browns 36, Steelers 31. That's my score prediction for the game. I do think, again, like you mentioned, it's going to be a crazy tight game, a lot tighter than 36-31 kind of alludes to, but I think it's going to be a shootout offensively. Both teams are going to be pass heavy. Rushing-wise, I think they're going to be rendered pretty useless, although I think Kareem Hunt will have a chunk run that will get him over 100 yards. And I think Baker Mayfield will have a breakout game, throwing over 300 yards, throwing multiple touchdowns, keeping the ball secure, not having any turnovers, and we win the game, a crazy game in Pittsburgh against the Steelers, 36-31, which, by the way, would kind of go with my NFL schedule prediction from episode 120. I did predict us to win against the Steelers, but I predicted us to lose, I believe, against either the Cowboys or the Colts. So I have us at 4-2 as well. So on my schedule prediction.
Yeah, this is where we line back up, and we were both at 4-2 after this game, but I'm happy to be wrong in that sense and ready for a win. 36-31 is a bold prediction. That score has only happened 4 times in the history of the NFL, 36-31. If you wanted to pick a real score, Gami, you could have done 36-, what is this? Let's see what we have here. 36-29. That's never happened before. You want to change your prediction?
Yeah.
You going to change it to the scoregami?
Yeah.
All right, 36-29.
36-29, Browns win.
That would be awesome. I like scoregami. It's
I like
fun.
scoregamis,
There was
too.
one last week. I forgot. I should have made a note of it. But anyways, I think it's going to be a great game. I'm nervous and excited. And I right now I'm more than excited, but I know I'm more excited than nervous. But I know when it's like 12:30 on Sunday, I'm going to be like...
Anxiety is setting in.
We didn't put this into quick predicts because it's going to be too hard to keep track of, but how many times do you think they're going to show the Myles Garrett helmet incident?
I don't know, but that'll be how about an extra quick predict just for our viewers? But wait, no, that means we still have to keep track.
They're all for the viewers, yeah.
Never mind.
Just keep an eye out and let us. Yeah, let's keep track for yourself. I would be. Let us know how many times you see him show up because I'll be trying to pay attention, but we're always, we're drinking and we're with people and maybe the Red Zone channel for a little, so we might miss some of it. But keep an eye out and let us know how many times you see him play the horrible, disgusting, unwatchable, terrible, he should go to jail act over and over as a promotional tool.
Probably multiple times.
I look forward to it. So, final thoughts before we sign off here.
Go Browns. Fuck the Steelers.
Well, I do want to remind for those on YouTube or Twitter, if you want to participate in kind of quick predicts on YouTube, we will put them into the description, so you can go into the description and copy and paste. And on Twitter, it will be we post the episode, then in a reply tweet, it'll have all the kind of quick predict stuff, just to make it easy for you guys to copy and paste. Just make sure if you're on Twitter, use the hashtag kind of quick predicts.
Please.
It makes it way easier for us to find. We have hundreds of people participating in this.
Hundreds.
You know how difficult it is to get
so many hundreds.
Yeah, so many 500 or 600, like 5 or 6 people, but it's appreciated, and those numbers are only going to get bigger, so you guys got to learn the rules immediately.
It does get bigger every week, which is why it becomes harder. Once people start like, oh, the kennel's back, and they start seeing Kennel Quick Predicts on Twitter, and people start wanting to participate, which is I'm grateful. It just makes it easier when you use the hashtag for me to just be like, hashtag Kennel Quick Predicts, and then go to latest.
Bada bing, bada boom.
Super.
And as always, the best way to support the show is to share it with your friends, retweet it, take
and that
the YouTube
is a way
link.
to share it.
That is a way to share it.
Hashtag Kennel Quick Predicts.
That's right.
Everyone's like, what's this?
What is? I want to play.
Oh, click. Whoa, the kennel.
No way. Best Cleveland Browns podcast in the history
world.
in the world. All right, I think that's
Yay.
it's probably about enough. So, can't wait for the game. Fuck the Steelers. Go Browns.
Go Browns.